I met these guys, and I thought Stelios could talk a little bit, kind of give you an idea of his background.
First off, thanks for coming out. I know you guys are busy. I had 2 kids in college, and I appreciate you guys showing up. It's been a crazy ride. It all started back in Greece at the foothills of Mount Olympus. That's where my parents were from. And he decided to take a gamble and come to America for a piece of the American dream. So in 1969, he took his wife, my mother, and my 2 brothers and sister, and he came over to America with $200 in his pocket. Didn't speak a word of English. And, you know, he was here. So when he got here, you know, when he was in Greece, people told him the streets of America were paved with gold. And then he got here, and he realized they lied to him. But I remember him telling me, as like a 10-year-old kid, he told me a story. He goes, they lied to me. They told me the streets were paved with gold, but it was better. It was paved with opportunity. He goes, that's all I needed. So what my father did was, he worked 16 hours a day, nonstop. He was a dishwasher, making $1 an hour. Think about that. He got 4 kids now, 3 kids from Greece. I was born here, only one born here. My mom was a seamstress, making $120 a week, and he got to raise 4 kids. So the sacrifice they went through, the trials and tribulations, and slowly they saved up some money. And around 1979, he decided to buy a little hot dog cart. So he buys a little hot dog cart, and that's when we started to actually have a taste of the American dream, because he started doing really well and became prosperous. Then he bought another one and another one, and that's how our family started to rise from nothing. So I'm a professional sports bettor, and if you guys read the book, you'll know I invest in the sports betting market. I invest in the real estate market, muscle car market, crypto. We're into everything. But to me, he was the biggest gambler in the world, because he risked everything to come here with $200 in his pocket. So that's how the story began. And then at the age of 9, he put me in a hot dog cart. So I'm in Philly selling hot dogs and meatballs and sausages and by myself. And in that hot dog cart, you learned a lot. It was one of the best educations of my life. You learn the value of $1 through hard work. You learn to speak to people, communicate. You hear so many different stories, different people from different parts of the world, and they're coming up, oh, who's this little kid selling hot dogs in the middle of the city? And I was a half-decent athlete, played some basketball, I did a lot of boxing. And then in 9th grade, you know, I was found, you know, in school, and it just wasn't for me. I wanted to go out there and get my piece of the American dream, so I went to work for my father, and he was the hardest guy to ever work for. I don't know if you guys do anything with your parents, but it's tough, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I started working in the hot dog cart, and then that didn't work out too well. We were fighting all the time. And then by the age of 18, a friend of mine approached me, and he goes, do you know any bookmakers, any bookies? So I said, yeah, I know. I said, for what? He goes, we're getting these games from Vegas, they don't lose. I said, what are you talking about? I mean, everyone who gambles loses. He goes, no, these are the sharpest sports bettors in the world. They treat it like a market, they invest in it. And I didn't believe him. He goes, listen, just get me some bookmakers and I'll prove it to you. So I grabbed him a couple bookmakers, and before you know it, we're in the sports betting office in Springfield, Delaware County, about 50 of us, and we're betting with bookmakers, and these guys aren't losing. So that's how I started in the street, making some money. And then I started selling some weed on the side, and then that started taking off. And you got to remember, back then it was all taboo, sports betting and marijuana. Now it's fashionable, it's sexy, everybody wants to be part of it. Everybody wants to open a dispensary, everyone wants to, you know, be in the sports betting industry. But back then it was really taboo. So, and it was kind of dangerous, because back then the mob ran all the sports books. So you're dealing with some shady characters. When you win, you're scared to go collect. You never know what happens. When you lose, they want their money right away. So that's how I, got into the street business of selling marijuana and betting on sports. And then in 1994, I had my first child, Stevie. He's here tonight. And then all of a sudden, it's not about me no more. It's about my family and my kids, and how do you raise these kids, and you want to get ahead, because I was starting out. And 4 years later, I had my other son Matt, 1998, and now you got 2 boys, So everything you do for the one, you got to do for the other. So now I'm working and working and working harder. Opened up a little beer distributor, selling beer. And before you know it, the marijuana business took off, the sports betting took off, and you get caught up in the matrix and you're making all this money, and when you start making big money, you start dreaming. You know, you got big dreams now because you're making more money's coming in. And before I knew it, I was in the jungles of Mexico with the Sinaloa cartel. And then you start questioning every decision you've made up to that point in your life. You know, you're in the middle of Mexico with some real shady guys, and you know, it was kind of scary. And then in 2005, I was out in Arizona. And there's a lot of stories in between that I'm leaving out, but I'm going to the meat of the stuff. And I get locked up. 1,248 pounds of marijuana. I was number one in the indictment, above the cartel. But I wasn't at the location that they raided, the warehouse. I've never been caught with any marijuana, any money, there's no surveillance on me, there's no pictures, there's no video surveillance, there's no audio surveillance. They locked up 6 guys in the warehouse, and they threw a grand jury indictment, and they came and got me with no evidence, and they threw me in the case. Now, obviously, they had confidential informants, you know, but that's all hearsay, telling, oh, he's the boss, he's running the show. But they never had no real evidence, never caught me with anything when it came to the marijuana side. So I decided to fight the case in 2006. So I'm out on bail from 2005 to 2006. We have 400 pages of discovery, and they have absolutely no evidence on me. So I decided to rumble, fight for my freedom, right? Hired the best lawyers in Arizona. We go to trial, but before you go to trial, you get to pick a jury of your peers. Usually you pick 12 jurors with 1 alternate. But in Arizona, they have a law, if you're looking at under 25 years, you pick 8 jurors with 1 alternate. Brings up the conviction rate 30%, because you don't have to convince as many people, right? So we picked the jury. Now we go to trial, we're rumbling the case. And what I realize is, it's a big production. Instead of movie producers and actors and directors, you have the district attorney, you have the defendant, you have the judges, you know, the whole court system. And cops take the stand, and all of a sudden, they start testifying to things that weren't true. And I'm like, wait, I never did that, I never did that. And I'm just sitting there like, this is what I didn't expect this, you know what I mean? So we go up and we're fighting the case, Make a long story short, I get found guilty on all charges. So I'm like, okay, no evidence, never caught me with nothing. I wasn't even at the location that they raided, the warehouse. You know, police testimony strong. So now they sentenced me. I could do up to, I think the sentencing guidelines were 3.5 to 12.5 years. So then I'm waiting to get sentenced. I'm in jail, waiting to get processed. We go to the sentencing, and the district attorney stands up and says, I want him to spend at least 10 years in prison. And I'm shocked. I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm never going to see my kids again, my wife again. You know, I'm 2,500 miles from home, in the middle of the desert. How am I going to survive this? You know. And I had my kids go out there. I had family members, friends, had over 100 character letters from well-respected people back here, politicians, police, friends that were police officers, business owners. And he was 8 years old at the time. And he asked my wife if he could take the podium to speak for, you know, on my behalf, on my character. And up until that point, I was kind of emotionless. I was kind of traumatized. I was in shock. You know, I'm going to go away forever. Well, what it felt like forever back then. And here comes my 8-year-old son fighting for me. And if you want to talk about what happened that day.
On the ride there to the court, I decided to get a little pen and a little pad and write something. And then when we got there, I asked my mother, can I speak? So then 8-year-old me goes up, and I start talking to the judge about why my father's a good man, why he doesn't belong in prison. So essentially I said, something of the sort where my father's a good guy, doesn't belong with people, jails meant and prisons meant for killers, the most evil of the evil. And that was not my father. My father was a loving, caring guy. I mean, every time he came home late at night, I'd go running down the stairs screaming, "Baba, Baba, Papa is here." And he'd get down on one knee, give me a hug and a kiss. You know, so my father, you know, he was always a good man with a good heart and helped out people whenever they were in need. So I went up and I told him that. And he can finish how that went.
Yeah, I still get a little teary-eyed. So, yeah, so he comes up, and mind you, there's always people in the courtroom. I had 7 people fly out to testify on my behalf, 100 character letters. Now my son's up there, and the judge goes, "Wait a second." He goes, "How old are you?" He goes, "I'm 8 years old, Your Honor." And the judge goes, "Okay, continue." So he starts talking about why I shouldn't be locked up, and goes on. And afterwards, the judge tells him, "I have an 8-year-old grandson, and I've never seen anyone your age come up here and doing what you're doing. You're fighting for your father's, and he really appreciated it." So, make a long story short about the sentencing, the DA wanted me to do 10 years in prison. The judge gave me some leniency because of the character letters, because of the people that flew 2,500 miles to testify on my behalf about my character. And he said to me, "I get the feeling that you shouldn't be here, but yet you are." So he goes, "I'm going to run 2 4.5-year sentences concurrent." And the DA stood up all upset, district attorney. "Oh, well, he knows the cartel, and he's got this, and he's got that, and he's from Philadelphia, and the mobsters, and all that." I was just trying to make some money for my family. I was never, with those guys, but you had to deal with shady characters to purchase the product. I mean, you got to be honest, So he told the DA to sit down. The DA sat down. And then they take me, they cuff me, and they take me to processing. And they send me to Yuma, Arizona, 122 degrees with no air conditioning, one of the hottest places in the world, to start serving my sentence. 23-hour lockdown, controlled movement, handcuffed and shackled everywhere you go. And I'm thinking to myself, how did I end up in this place? I'm surrounded by mass murderers, lunatics. It was a max yard. And later I found out that if you do take a case to trial in Arizona and you lose, they send you to the worst prisons to set an example. So you tell everybody, but it is what it is. Now, I was selling a lot of marijuana, but the case they had against me, the discovery, the evidence, there was none. So I don't feel like a victim or, I was cheated because I was running the show. But at the end of the day, they lied. They broke the law to enforce the law to convict me. So I'm sitting there for 2 years. I'd filed an appeal. 2 years later, I got a letter in the mail while I'm at Kingman prison. They had shipped me about a year later to a private prison. And the paper said reverse and remanded. So I didn't know what that meant. But I knew it sounded a lot better than guilty on all charges. So I took it to the jailhouse lawyer. I said, "What's this mean?" Because, I went to 9th grade. I was educated. He goes, "You're going home, son." I said, "What?" He goes, "You overturned your conviction." I was like, wow, I was blown away. And I'm still getting goosebumps because that moment, I ran to the phone, called my wife, and they already knew. They're like, "You're coming home." And, that changed everything. So while I was in prison, this is 2008 now, I had placed a wager on the Phillies to win the World Series. I put 2,000 on them at 22-1 odds. I got that letter in August of 2008. By the time they processed all the paperwork, and I was released, I think it was like October 8th, 4 days before my birthday. Phillies are in the World Series. I'm back with my kids, my family, and I'm a free man. Later on, I found out that 2 of the police officers in the case planted evidence in other cases, and they had got arrested. They admitted what they testified to wasn't true, and that's how I overturned my conviction. So I learned a big lesson. Obviously, I was breaking the law. Did I deserve to go to jail? Yeah. But the evidence they had against me was zero. And they threw me in the case, and that's why I overturned my conviction, and I actually beat the state of Arizona. So next thing you know, the Phillies won the World Series. I win my wager, and I start, going back to what I did best was sports betting. I'm a professional sports bettor. I'm a handicapper. They call me an originator. When you see, I don't know if you guys know anything about sports betting, but sports betting is a lot like the stock market. If you buy Apple at $100 and it goes to 120, it's a good buy. Same as sports betting. If I place a bet on the Eagles at -6 and the game goes to 7.5 or 8, it's a good bet. It's called closing line value. There's value there. So I always approach sports betting like a business. Went back to sports betting, opened up a website in 2012. And by 2014, I was doing the biggest TV shows, podcasts, radio shows in the country. You name it, name the show. I've been on it, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, ABC. I've done Joey Coco podcast, Coco Diaz podcast. He's good friends with Joe Rogan. I do the Dan Stelios show. I was doing the #1 show in Chicago forever, ESPN 1000. A lot of stuff in Philly. I'm a sports betting consultant, and the website takes off, and things are back to, I don't want to say normal, but things are actually better than ever. And then in 2019, or 2020 was it, Greg? Me and Greg meet up. And
Right after COVID.
Right after COVID. And I knew Greg when we were kids. He was a great athlete as a youngster. He played at Cornell, baseball and football. Yeah. So, and I just wanted to help a friend out that I hadn't seen in years. And at that time, I had a big social media following. And I said, Greg, let me help you out. And we did some promotional stuff. And then we decided to do my story, wrote the screenplay. And now, like he said, we're in negotiations with some streaming networks, with some high-profile, actors to do a movie as well. And that's somewhat, not the whole story, but a quick synopsis of what happened. And along the way, I was able to keep my family together, keep my marriage together 33 years. And there's a statistic, anyone locked up for 2 years or more gets divorced 99.9% of the time. So it's all about beating the odds, flipping the odds in your favor, no matter what comes your way, and being resilient, no matter how dark things look, no matter how bad things get. You got to keep moving. You can never surrender. You got to keep fighting. And as long as you keep doing the right things, good things will happen. And that's a little bit about the story. If you guys want to ask any questions, I don't know if you guys have read it.
So what would you say what was your biggest gamble on bet? Like what bet did you think that did that would not turn out but actually did?
Well, I'm hoping I win every wager, but I had a big bet, and it's all about information. Information that the bookmakers don't have. Information that's not factored into the point spread. If you can get information like that, you can make some good money in sports betting. So I got a phone call, was it 2020? It was 2020, from a good friend, worked for the NFL, and I had done him a favor when he was a kid. He got in trouble in Miami, and I helped him out. So he used to always call me up with information. He tells me, Tom Brady's going to the Buccaneers. I start laughing at him. Everyone's expecting him to go to the Chargers that year. I said, stop messing around. He goes, stop messing around. He goes, you should be betting it. I said, are you serious? He goes, yeah. So I put $5,000 on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win the Super Bowl that year at 50-1. And the reason why I did it was the year before, Tampa Bay was 7-9. But they had one of the best defenses in the NFL. And Jameis Winston was the quarterback. And he had thrown 30 interceptions that year. And the biggest determining factor of who wins a football game is turnovers. So now here comes Tom Brady, who's the greatest quarterback of all time. They had two of the best wideouts in the league. And I don't want to bore you with all the advanced analytics and metrics, but it's Tom Brady. You know what I mean? So I had information he was going to Tampa Bay before anyone else was. Now in the stock market, that's insider trading. That's illegal. But in the sports betting market, it's perfectly legal. So about midway through the season, they were only 7-5. So I started getting nervous. And then in the end, it ended up working out, and I won $250,000 on that bet. Yeah, so it was a nice payday. This year, I actually bet the Phillies before the season started for $5,000 at 11-1. So I'm hoping they win the World Series. That's a $50,000 payday. But there's been so many, futures that we've cashed. And one of my best friends, Jimmy Batista, was the guy that was paying off the NBA referee, Tim Dunleavy. I don't know if you guys remember the NBA betting scandal. So we talk about that in the book a little bit. And he ended up getting in trouble, But yeah, it's been a wild ride. And I think my biggest accomplishment through it all was keeping my family together, keep my marriage together, because everything else is just action. But your health, your freedom, and your family is priceless. And that's the biggest things for me. You guys got any other questions?
To add to that, that's actually how I try to live my life, with 4 pillars. I think I say it at the bottom on the screen. It says family man who loves God, culture, and tradition. Those are the things, when things get bad, those are the things you cling to and which bring you back to the center. When you have doubts, whenever you have troubled times and hard times, it's what brings you together. When my dad was in prison, my mother would come to me, we pray every night. So there's a lot of different things in which go on in life. It's going to be a roller coaster. It's going to be up, it's going to be a lot of downs, and sometimes you're going to feel like there's a lot more downs than there are ups. But in those downs, you're going to need something to cling to and hold on to. For me, it was the letters he sent me while he was in prison. It was my mother praying for me. It was our tradition, my family, and all of those things in which, kept us together. I always say God gives you the foundation you need to build, right? And he tells you how to behave, provides you with the ability to be selfless. And in my opinion, that makes the world a better place. Family, it's, the family you surround yourself with is your community and support system. Culture, I say culture gives you the framework of understanding and navigating the world. It transmits values and provides meaning and purpose in life. And I think tradition just reinforces all of those 3 things: God, family, and culture. Whether it's every Sunday you go to church or every Monday you go sit down with your family at dinner. To me, these are the things in which, when the times get hard, in which hold you strong.
Yeah, your family's your strength. Your friends, you got some close friends, and when things are bad, that's who you talk to. That's who you let it out on. That's who helped lift you up. And I wasn't always the most religious guy. I used to think if I walk in a church, I might get struck by lightning once in a while. But when I was locked up, and it seemed like there was no light at the end of the tunnel, and I was in the worst prison, one of the worst prisons in America, and it was 122 degrees, and I'm sweating, and the walls are sweating, and there's so much tension. I'm surrounded by all these mass murderers. I start praying. And this was my prayer every day for 2 years. I would say, God, I don't even know if that's your name, and I don't even know if you're religious. I would pray, I'm smart enough to know that I'll never figure it out, how it works, but I'm also smart enough to know it's working. Everything works in unison. The trees, our earth, the galaxy, everything, the moon, the stars, everything's happening. I said, if you find a way to get me out of here, I'll never doubt you again. Same prayer every day for 2 years. And I don't even know if it's a prayer. I mean, that's how I prayed. 2 years later, I overturned my conviction, which nobody does in the state of Arizona. The odds of that happening are slim to none, and Slim left a long time ago. And people say, it was a coincidence, or you were lucky you overturned your conviction. I said, that may be true, but at the end of the day, God answered my prayers, and He got me out of there. So, it is what it is. So you need something when, I'm a big math guy. I look at a lot of stats. I do a lot of reading every day on sports. Even in the stock market. I wake up at 5 o'clock every morning. I start reading about the stock market, and then when I'm done doing that for 3-4 hours, I start reading about all the matchups in the NFL and baseball. And I run through the analytics. We got AI programs now. We have a turnover differential program that determines which team's going to turn the ball over more than the other team. We run a lot of different programs to try and gain an edge in the sports betting market and to turn a profit. So math is great, but some things you can't quantify. Some things happen that you're like, what are the odds of that happening? It's almost impossible, but they happen every day. And people call them miracles, and people call them coincidence, and whatever you want to call them, you can call them. But there's certain things that you can't quantify. And me overturning my conviction was one of them. I mean, you go to trial and you lose. When the jury stood up in Arizona, and they each had to stand up and say, Judge asked them, how do you find the defendant? They would say guilty. The next one would stand up, guilty, guilty, guilty. My lawyer turned to me, Alan Bickert, and I said, Alan, what about an appeal? He goes, kid, you can't win a trial. Your luck ran out. He goes, you're done. I'm like, what kind of lawyer says that to somebody just, was found guilty? And then when I overturned my conviction and I was home, I called Alan up. I said, Alan, my luck ran out, huh? He goes, I had the great news. I said, whatever, man. But I'd use a different lawyer for my appeal. And thank God I did. Thomas Hoyle, he saved my life. Changed my whole future, because when you're in prison, every minute feels like an hour. Every hour feels like a day. Every day feels like a month. And it's not a place you want to be.
I have a question, real quick. How many of you guys bet on sports? You got one, you got two, you got three,
There's four.
you got four, you got five,
You took the Cowboys a couple years ago on some bad advice.
6. Anybody else?
Hey, I think
Small
that's
bets
how
count.
their bets a little bit.
Everything and anything counts.
Yeah.
But so how many of you guys know FanDuel or DraftKings? You got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, we got a lot that know FanDuel and DraftKings. So that's
We're going to give you guys some advice.
now. How many of you guys bet parlays?
Everybody.
So all the people that bet parlays. Okay. How many of you guys bet the boosted plays and boosted parlays and all that? Same game parlays? No? A little bit.
We got
Put the hands back up. All right. How many legs do you put on the parlays? Like a lot?
How many
Do you-
teams?
How many teams? How many?
5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah.
10, 20, 10 sometimes, only sometimes. So do you guys know the value of FanDuel and what they're valued at, the company, corporation? Any guesses? 25? You said 35? Right in the middle, 31 billion, right?
That's just FanDuel.
That's just FanDuel, okay? And there's so many different apps and so many different places you can place bets, but the leading one is FanDuel at 31 billion. Did you know that 70% of FanDuel's bets come from parlays? Right? So, with that,
68% of the profit comes from people betting parlays, which are really lottery tickets. Gotta let you finish.
yeah, so 68%.
Don't you increase your chances with parlay?
Opposite.
It's the opposite.
So what happens is they're a $31 billion organization, okay? Most of the revenue profits, where do they come from? People betting parlays. They're a $31 billion organization. Do you guys really believe the odds are in your favor when you're betting these parlays? Now that I just said that to you. No? Yeah? No? Anybody else? All right, so I'm going to name a couple things in which have better odds than a 10-team parlay, for example. You're more likely to get into Harvard University or any other Ivy League university
Then hitting a 10-team parlay.
than heading a 10-team parlay with normal odds of 110.
And they're not even giving you true odds.
Yes, they're cheating you.
They're cheating you on top of it.
Usually the
So-
true odds are not what they give you.
Yeah.
They give you worse. But also, in your lifetime, you're more likely to get hit by lightning.
They hit a 10-team parlay. So
Isn't
we're,
that
we're
crazy?
basically trying to tell you, don't bet parlays.
So if you treat it like entertainment, it's going to pay like entertainment. Now, if you treat it like a business, instead of saying you're betting, maybe you're investing. You think about it totally differently. But then now things change. And that's what he was able to do.
Well, yeah. This is when you're betting on an NFL game. You're risking 110 to win 100. That's called the vig, the juice. And we're not trying to tell anyone to bet on anything. We're just explaining the math behind it and why you guys shouldn't be betting unless you treat it like a business. So you're risking 110 to win 100. The break-even point is 52.4%. It sounds easy. But what happens is you wake up on a Sunday, the Eagles looked good last week, you have recency bias. So who are you going to bet this week? The Eagles. But you haven't done your homework, you don't know who's playing, who's hurt, who's coming back, what their worth is to their offensive production, to their defensive production. You don't know how many games they've played on the road, division opponents, like there's certain gambling angles. The weather's big in the NFL, especially the wind. So if you have a team that is heavily oriented with the pass and it's a real windy day, well, they're not going to have success passing the ball. So at the end of the day, you got to be better than 52.4%, and you got to do your homework. And I tell people, like, Professor, the first time you bought your house, how many hours did you spend before you bought that house? How many comps did you run? Did you go around the neighborhood? You looked at the hospitals, the demographics, the upgrades in the house. How many hours did you spend before you purchased that house? Yeah. Before I purchased my first house, we probably looked at 70 different houses, a couple hundred hours. And then I found value in that house. I liked the price, and I purchased it. And that's what we do with the sports betting market. I spent 16, 17 hours on one matchup researching. I got a better chance of winning that bet than losing that bet when the break-even point is 52.4%. But if you haven't done your research and your homework, you got no shot. And that's why if you don't treat it like a business, you're in trouble. And there's nothing wrong. Listen, people pay $500 to go see a concert, and after 2 hours, concert's over, they had a good time, $500 gone. So if you say, okay, I'm going to bet $10 on this game, it's entertainment. That game's over, you had fun, you had a vested interest, you either won $10 or you lost 11. But the problem is, it becomes very addicting. It's overly saturated now, and it's everywhere. And it's kind of scary. At first, I was a proponent of the legalization of sports betting, but I didn't take in consideration that people didn't have the willpower I had. People didn't approach the market the way I approached it. And now, 6, 7 years later, I'm against it. They should have kept it in Vegas, because I'm seeing what's doing to a lot of college kids on these campuses, a lot of young men. People are betting it, and I don't want to compare it to drugs, but if you wanted to go get drugs in the old days, you had to go into North Philly and the worst neighborhoods and get drugs. And now, if you're addicted, you just go like this. It's right. It's too easy. And these sports books, they're predators. And they keep feeding you stuff. And they give out wrong content and wrong information, telling you to bet this and bet these parlays that you have absolutely no shot of winning at. So all I'm saying is tread lightly if you're looking to bet on sports, and don't get caught up with it.
What sport would you tell us to never even consider about?
I mean,
Which sport would you never consider?
never invest in any sport unless you've done your research, and unless you know what to look for. There's a lot of skew statistics that don't mean anything. You're looking at teams that have the most passing yards, and it doesn't mean anything. Injuries are huge in the NFL. You got to really know what the variables are that carry weight, what the predictive indicators are when you're looking to place these wagers. So don't bet on any sports unless you're going to treat it as fun. And if you are going to get into it, you got to do a lot of homework. Just like anything else, there's no shortcuts. You're not going to wake up and hit a 10-team parlay. People win the Powerball, but how many people hit the Powerball? You know what I mean? So, Eddie C, you got a question?
Anybody else have any questions right now?
Tom.
So if you were to change anything, if you had to do it again, there's one thing you could change. What would it be?
I did it the hard way. I went through a lot. Most guys like me, they don't make it. Most of my friends doing life, dead, lost their families. their children hate them because they didn't spend no time with them, I would, it's hard to say. I would go to school. I think I would go to school. It's a lot easier. You know, school's not easy, but, you know, and people think, you know, selling pot's easy and all that. It's the most dangerous thing you can ever do in your life, and there's been times where I thought I was dead, and somehow, you know, I made it. So I won't put myself in those dangerous situations.
Real quick,
Yeah.
what's the most dangerous situation you've ever put yourself in?
There's a lot. I guess going to Mexico and meeting up with those guys. And, you know, there's a Mexican guy in the corner. I walk into his house, and we go to the bathroom, and they lift up the tub, hydraulics. We go into a tunnel. We end up at another house. You walk in the house, and there's bales of weed everywhere. You're looking around. There's a guy in the corner making coffee. He's eyeing me up and down. And I didn't know who these people were back then. You know, if you read the book, you'll find out who that guy in the corner was. One of the most notorious drug traffickers in the world. That was very dangerous. There's been so many different situations.
Thinking about that, I'm going to poke the bear here. So, in the heyday of when you're gambling and things are illegal, how was that relationship with the organized crime, cartels, and like were they coming to you?
Oh, they loved me because I was straight money.
Okay.
My word was everything. You can give me $2 million in credit, I'll have that money to you in 3 days. You know, it's all about your word. And you're only as good as your word. And in business, you know, when you tell someone you're going to make it happen, and you don't, they look at you funny. There was a time, there was a place called Paradigm. It was an old city.
Philadelphia.
In Philly, Center City, Philly. And these so-called mobsters owed me money. I didn't even owe them money. And they had gotten some trouble. And I was a businessman. I was never a gangster. I was never a mobster. I was, you know, I'm Greek, 100% Greek. I was never with, you know, none of those guys. I was trying to make some money for my family. And they tried to kill me inside a Paradigm because they owed me money. They thought I was going to do something to them. And what happened was, the place was packed that night, and if you walked into the place, you could be this close to somebody, you could barely hear what they were. That's how loud the place was. And they invited me down, and I thought they were going to pay me the money they owed me. So I come down there. The one guy goes, yo, Johnny wants to talk to you. Johnny wants to. I said, all right. So Johnny comes around, and he goes, let's go to the bathroom. I got to talk to you about something. I was like, what? He goes, the bathroom. I got to talk to you. I said, all right. So they had a bathroom in the back, a Paradigm, that was all glass, and when you walked in, it all smoked up. It's kind of cool. I started walking that way. Then he grabs me by the arm. He goes, no, there's a bathroom in the basement. He goes, in the basement? So the bar was on this side of the place. The basement door was on the other side. I see him go down. I see his associate go down. I look down those steps. I turn around and went right back to the bar. I said, 2 shots of Jameson. Guy's like, what? I put a $100 bill on the counter. I said, 2 shots of Jameson. 2 shots. I drank them real quick. One of his other associates came over to me. He goes, yo, they're looking for you. I go, I got to go. My kid's sick. And I just left. Later on, I found out the truth. You know, the truth always comes out. You can travel around the world a million times, but the snow always melts. And they were planning on doing something to me. So, you know, my instincts took over. And, you know, there were so many moments like that pretty scary, you know. Because I'm a businessman, and that's how I always saw myself. That was in the weed market and the sports betting market. But these guys you're dealing with are gangsters and thugs and dangerous individuals. And that's where it gets really scary. That's where the odds of me making it were really slim. But I'm here. I'm here for a reason. And, you know, I'm blessed. You know, every second's priceless. Every day is beautiful. I'm grateful for everything, my family, my kids, my friends. And now I think back and, you know, when you're young, sometimes you don't appreciate everything. And when you get older, you see things with more clarity. And you really, you know, you smell the roses. You appreciate every second, you know, with your kids, with your family, with your friends, with your loved ones. And, you know, you get older, you change, you know. Did I answer the question? I mean, yeah.
Any other questions?
It varies from year to year. You know, there's been baseball seasons where I won like 150 positions. That means I won 150 more wagers than I lost. There's been baseball seasons where I broke even. You know, so you do all the work, you don't always win. There's so much variance, and it's the law of big numbers. You know, over the course of, you know, 5,000 wagers, I'm going to win long term. But if you catch a bad patch, sometimes you lose. It's like any other business. The NFL, we've done really well. College football, we've done well, even though this year we started off a little slow. The futures market, I love the futures market because I look at these teams as companies. You know, when you look at a company, you look at the CEO, the managers, the district managers, you look at their, you know, employment force, and he's one of the greatest businessmen I've ever met right there, Greg Lingo. He built a monster company from his garage. And that's how I look at these teams. Who are the coaches? Who are the assistant coaches? Who's the owner? Who's the GM? I mean, Harry Roseman. He's amazing. You've seen what he's done with the Eagles. And then you look at the quarterback, the most impactful player on the field. He's worth about 6 to 7 points to the point spread when he's not playing, the starting quarterback. That's how valuable he is. Your starting center. He's the second most valuable person on the football field because he touches the ball in every possession. So if you get a backup in there and they got some bad snaps and they're causing turnovers, you know, they're going to lose the game. So I approach the futures market like I do the stock market, and you know, we've done really well betting futures. Futures are teams that you bet at the beginning of the season to win the World Series or the Super Bowl, and you get great odds, 50 to 1, 70 to 1, 80 to 1. You get great odds on your money. Just waiting. Oh man, right there.
I'm going to speak more for the NFL. Have you ever heard of any kind of like script or anything? I always see that.
Scripts. Is it scripted?
Like, I know, like maybe last year, for example, Kansas City Chiefs, everyone said the refs were on their side. You know,
Well, there is. I truly believe there's an NFL lean, and the NFL is a business. Are they out there fixing games? No, because you know everything's based on the price. The point spread's a great equalizer, right? So you're not just betting straight up. You got to lay 7 points. This team's got to win by 7 or 10. The NFL doesn't care about that. The NFL cares about how much money is the NFL making. So the Vegas line, they're not interested in that. So, but if they, you know, if Patrick Mahomes jerseys are going to make them $1 billion this year, well, you're going to protect Patrick Mahomes, just like they did with Tom Brady and certain other players. In basketball, it was Michael Jordan. They had the Jordan rules. In different sports, there's certain players that, you know, there's a lean. They protect those guys, and there's a little bit of an edge when those guys, you know, play their opponents. Scared? Scared. Yeah, you're scared. You're scared. When you go to a max prison and there's all these killers, but you got to pay attention. Reaction is so bad. I'll give you a perfect example of a scary situation for me, and it was the smallest situation. So I'm in prison. I'm at a max yard with all these lifers and killers, and I'm getting all these pieces of mail every day, 10 to 15 pieces of mail from friends, family, my kids, and every day I'm looking around, and none of these guys are getting any mail. And all of a sudden, I'm looking around at these guys, and it's building animosity. And they're starting to get jealous and envious of me because I'm getting all this attention, and they're not, and people have forgotten about them. So now I'm starting to feel tension with these guys. These guys, you could be sleeping, this guy could stab you in your sleep and kill you. You're dead. All because I'm getting mail and they weren't. So now I start sweating. I go, these guys are going to kill me because I'm getting mail. I said, I got to flip this. So what I started doing was, I was blessed with a lot of commissary. I started feeding these guys because they didn't have money on their books when you're locked up. So I would make this guy a sandwich. All of a sudden, they're not worried about the mail no more. They're happy that you're feeding them. And that got rid of that animosity and that envy of me getting all the attention with all the mail, and they weren't getting any. You know, so that was kind of scary, because as soon as you realize what's going on, you know, and there's no arguing with these people. There's no, you know, there's no fighting. If you get an argument with the killer, he's going to try and kill you. There's no, you know, and I boxed my whole life. My family still has a boxing gym in Philly. That doesn't mean anything in prison. You know, so yeah, I was scared numerous of times. But you get caught up in the matrix, and, you know, and you start dreaming. Like you said, you start making big amounts of money. And as someone that came from nothing, you know, you start dreaming. You want a better future for your kids than you had. You know, when I was a kid, I wanted a honey bun, and my dad got a piece of white bread, put some butter on there and some honey. He goes, "There's your honey bun." You know, and I would go to my friends' houses, and they all had Cheerios and cereal, and we didn't have that. My dad couldn't afford cereal.
Breadcrumbs.
So what he would do was he would have a gallon of milk, gallon of water. He would cut the milk, make 2 gallons out of a gallon, pour it in a bowl, and he was working as a busboy at the time. He would get the day-old bread, break it up, put it in the milk, put sugar on top, and that was our cereal. So, you know, you come from nothing, and you start making some money, you get caught up in it, you know. So.
You're gambling. Did you ever go and do gambling like overseas in other countries, especially like, you know, football, soccer?
No, I never messed with soccer because there was a study done, and I was good friends with a guy that owned one of the smaller soccer clubs. And this was maybe about 10, 12 years ago. He said about 12% of soccer games were fixed. So when he told me that, you got no edge at all. How are you going to make the money? I don't care how much you research. If those refs are pulling out red flags, you got no shot. Now, you know, I don't know it to be true, but if the guy who owns one of the smaller soccer clubs tells me that, I'm going to listen to him. You know, you got to check your ego at the door, no matter how good of a sports bettor you are, and you got to pay attention to information. You know. So yeah, no soccer for me. Stick to the American sports, stuff that I'm good at. I don't do tennis. You know, there's certain sports that, you know, I was a big boxer. If I think I have an edge in a boxing fight, and I still know a lot of the big-time trainers and a lot of the athletes. I trained 2 world champions. I don't even talk about it in the book. Stephen Fulton was the last champ I trained, 122-pound champion. So yeah, you know, stuff that I think I'm strong at, stuff that I know how the game works. You know, I can identify the predictive indicators of what I think is going to happen. Okay. I can't hear you. Oh, they took so much money from me when they arrested me. And then I returned the conviction, I didn't get it back. So yeah, they took a lot of money. And you got to start over. And you got to just keep swinging.
What's the biggest payout you've ever had?
In sports?
Yeah.
Tampa Bay was big at 250. We had the Florida Gators this year. Well, last year in college basketball, that was a big payout. I guess. Which one?
Cotto.
Oh, Cotto was one of my biggest bets. Miguel Cotto fought Antonio Margarito.
Boxing.
Yeah, it was a boxing match. It was years ago. And one of my fighters was on the undercard. So the first time Cotto fought this guy Margarito used illegal hand wraps and beat the crap out of Cotto. They found out later he was suspended. So now this is the second time they're fighting.
Is this the Polish guy?
No, it was the Puerto Rican guy, Miguel Cotto versus Antonio Margarito, the Mexican guy. So I have a fighter that's on the undercard. I know the kid since he's 8 years old. We've kind of raised him, we trained him, we supported him financially, you know, friends. And it had to be like a Tuesday or a Monday, and I call him up. I go, we're coming up for the fight. It was in Madison Square Garden because he was on the undercard. And then after him, his name was Mike Jones. After him, Cotto was fighting Margarito the second time. And Mike Jones goes to me, "Don't come up yet." I said, "Why?" He goes, "Cotto had a hard time passing his eye exam. As someone that fought before, they give you a peripheral vision test. They go like this, If you can't see the fingers on the side, well, then you can't fight because you can't see punches coming at you. He goes, he didn't pass his eye exam, they might not fight. I said, what do you mean he didn't pass his eye? He goes, I don't think he can see out of his left eye. He goes, Aram's coming to New York to try and fix this. If not, they're going to move the fight to Texas. I said, all right. So right away, I'm thinking, this guy's going to he's going to get beat up. You know what I mean? You put your hand over your eye and try and fight someone, you can't fight. And then he calls me on Thursday or Friday. He goes, no, they fixed it. He's still fighting. I said, okay. I started betting Cotto for all the money in the world. For all the feta cheese in Greece. I'm betting Cotto because I know this other guy can't see. And it was the second time they fought, and the first time the guy that can't see had used illegal hand wraps, so you knew Cotto had revenge on his mind. He went in there and beat the out of Margarito, and we won a lot of money. And that was information that wasn't factored into the price of the fight. The fight was only minus 200 Cotto. So the implied probability was like 66% Cotto was going to fight. But when you do this, it's like 10,000% he's going to win the fight. You know? So that information gave me an opportunity, and I seized that opportunity, and we made a lot of money on that fight. So that's what I mean. If you get certain information, it doesn't matter what market it's in, you can make a lot of money. You know, that was one of my bigger paid days. The one year, this was I think it was 92. Villanova was playing Seton Hall in a basketball game.
It's detailed in the book.
What's that?
It's detailed in the book. Right?
Oh yeah, I detailed this in the book. And we got some information that two of the starting point guards for Villanova got in a fight the night before and they were suspended. And mind you, there was no internet back then. Information didn't travel like it does today. And we confirmed the information. So we started betting Seton Hall, the other side. I bet that fight, honestly, for every penny I had back then. I bet that basketball game. No, the basketball game, I probably had $180,000 on that basketball game. College basketball game back then. It was every penny I had. Because I know if your two starting point guards are out, you're not winning the game. And the game was a pick'em. By the time the game started, that line went from a pick'em to -8, Seton Hall. And Seton Hall went out there and just destroyed them. And that's information. Information is king in anything, in any market. You know, you go to college for information. Give you a better chance of winning, success. Information is everything, you know.
What other questions do you guys have?
So, from what it sounds like there's a few different skills you use: math, observation, communication. If there's any more, or how do you value those? Is there anything you value more than the other? What's your...
Well, your network's big. You know, if you surround yourself with smart people, you get smart information, you get good information. So your network's big. Hard work never goes out of style. You know, you got to work. You know, I'm not the smartest guy in the world. Like I said, I went to 9th grade. I got my GED in prison. But if I got to work 20 hours a day to make something happen, I'm going to work 20. If I got to work 20, my father's, he said his favorite saying was, if you work 40 hours a week and it's not enough, you work 60. Now the key words is if it's not enough. And if you work 60 and it's not enough, you work 80. If you work 80, it's not enough, you work 100. And if that's not enough, you don't sleep. Because failure wasn't an option to him. He came here with nothing. So hard work is big to me. You know, you might be smarter than me, but I'm going to outwork you. You know, your network's big. And experience. Experience is huge, you know. An opinion is great, but without experience, it's just a thought. You know? Experience, you know, because there's doors that you haven't opened yet. You don't know what's behind those doors. But if you have the experience, you know, I'm not opening that door. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go over here, you know? And, yeah, you're right.
This is actually my grandfather up there, you can see.
Looks like him a little bit, right?
A little bit.
Up top.
That's them in Greece at the Acropolis.
Yeah, I was 9 years old there.
Up here, you can see. My dad is very young. My father, as you can see here.
That's me with Mike Tyson.
Here with Mike Tyson.
This old guy right here is Jake LaMotta. If you ever seen the movie Raging Bull,
Yes.
one of the greatest boxers ever. That's me at the beer distributor. And the stories are so crazy that if you read the book, and there were pictures that accompanied the book, and if you couldn't Google the information, you'd be like, this didn't happen. But it happened. And I'm still here to talk about it. And I've never done this before. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so with all your sport betting, and the fact that it is can be addictive, did you ever find yourself like starting to go to crap table, like, doing that side of that?
Never. We used to count cards when we were young. We got thrown out of Atlantic City. To me, if I don't have an edge on something,
Gotcha.
I'm not going to invest in it. To me, it's all about investing and turning a profit. I don't have no gamble in me. I'm a little bit of a risk taker, as long as I know the odds are in my favor. But I can walk through the entire casino, and because I know every 15 minutes that you sit on that chair, you lose 7% of your bankroll when you're playing blackjack, when you're playing roulette. Worst odds in the house. I mean, you can't beat those guys. The longer you sit there, you're going to go broke. And that's why they give you the free drinks, and they give you the comp rooms, and they fly you in, and they give you the free buffets and the dinners to get you to sit on that chair and to take everything you got. They're not your friends. All these, commercials, these DraftKings, we're going to give you this. No, they're just pulling you in. Don't fall for it. You got to flip the odds in your favor, no matter what you do, whether it's sports betting, whether you have a little mom and pop store, whether, you're looking for a job. It's all about flipping the odds in your favor, or else don't do it. It's not worth it.
This
You're gonna
actually
lose.
goes right in hand with the title of a book called Booked. If you want to explain why it's called Booked.
Yeah, because you're always getting booked. Everyone's always in your pocket. You try to figure out how to make money and get ahead, and you fall in love with a girl, you want to go buy a diamond ring to get engaged. Well, a diamond ring is, I don't know, depending on what you can afford, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. And they brainwash and precondition people to think you need a diamond ring to fall in love. You don't need it. My parents got married with a tin foil on their finger, and they stayed married forever. Diamond ring is nice to have. And then, what's next? Then you got to get married. Then the wedding industry comes in, and they book you, and they charge you these exuberant prices to get married. Then you want to find a little, row home or a little house. You're going to buy a $200,000 house, which is cheap these days. By the time you're done paying off that house, it costs you $650,000 with the interest rates, with the upkeep, with the, whatever you put into the house. So you're always getting booked. And when you place a wager, you're getting booked. When you get in trouble with the law, you're getting booked. So you're getting booked your whole life, and the key is to flip the odds in your favor and avoid those pitfalls. And that's why we wrote the book. I dedicated it to my father, who was the biggest gambler in the world. Like I said, he left Greece with $200 and came here. I just bet money. Money comes and goes, but to do what he did, that was I don't think I could, just get up today and go to China with 3 kids and $200 and make it. I mean, the odds aren't in your favor. That's negative expectation. That's not, positive EV. So, that's why we call the book Booked, because you're always getting booked. And it was also to inspire people, no matter how bad things get. You got to keep swinging. You got to keep moving. And it's so key to keep your family and your friends together. And relationships are priceless. And money comes and goes. You're going to make money. You're not going to have money. But your family, your friends, your brothers, your sisters, to me, that's what always been priceless. And that's what kept me strong during some real difficult times. Yeah.
His story is why I always say, always keep moving, never stay stagnant. Doesn't matter what's going on, mentally, physically, just keep going. Failure is not the end, but it's the fuel. And I think his story exemplifies that, and that's what inspired me.
He speaks so much better than me. I went to 9th grade, and I wish I could speak like that so eloquently and articulate. God.
He always says his father was Superman to him, but to me, he was Superman because of everything he went through. And hopefully one day I can do that for my kids and be that example. But yeah, never stay stagnant. Keep on going, and you're facing hard times, and you're at failure. Just remember, that's not the end. It's just the fuel.
Yeah, because life takes you in so many different directions. I went from being in a supermax prison to being on the biggest TV shows in the world. I mean, how do you explain that? It's hard to. And I never had a game plan. I was just trying to make money for my family and do what I did best, And in the end, betting on sports I was pretty good at it. And it wasn't easy, but and now we're writing books, and Greg's been awesome with everything. And we might have a TV series and a movie coming out, so it's kind of cool.
Let us know. We'll be back.
Greg?
One of the, when I was first talking to Steve just about what he mentioned, I think it's a good message for you guys to hear that sports betting for home. And I said, well, like, give an example. How in the world do you bet baseball? Like, how do you get it? And one of the things that he said was, first of all, it's not emotional. He doesn't have a team. You know. But he said if there's 32 pitchers pitching tonight, look which one of those 32 might have had a bad start the last 3 times they pitched. So then maybe now you've narrowed it down to 6 pitchers pitching tonight that didn't pitch well the last 3 times they pitched. Which one of them is pitching against a team that hits home runs? Right now we might have those 6 pitchers down to 3 pitchers. And which one of those pitchers that's trending poorly the last 3 starts that is pitching against a team that hits home runs is pitching in an ideal home run hitting conditions, whether you get parametric pressure. My head almost exploded to think that that's how he's picking the baseball team that he's going to
Process
bet on.
elimination.
So when you're betting on the Phillies, just know that there's somebody out there that's spending a lot more time on it than you are to make sure that those odds are not.
Because with baseball, weather plays the biggest role. The ball carries another 10, 15 feet, and if you hit more home runs, you're going to score, more runs at the end of the day. So if you got, fly ball pitcher pitching in ideal home run conditions, weather conditions, and the home run favorability index is through the roof, well, a lot of home runs are going to be hit that day. And I don't care how great the other pitcher is, if the wind's blowing out and the weather's right, and the dew point and the barometric pressure is right,
Velocity down.
Forget about it. So there's other things that you got to look at instead of, the Phillies are a great team and they've been winning 6 in a row, and that doesn't mean anything. And that's why I say a lot of these statistics are skewed, and you really got to look at what really matters, not just in bet on sports, but in life and in any other business.
You had a question.
I just wondered, you said you had AI analytics. Are you doing all that stuff with AI now? Or
I got a guy that used to, see if I can release this. He used to build programs that predicted earthquakes. Really smart guy, a lot smarter than me. And, I'm old school. I do everything pen and paper, hard work, and he had to convince me to give him all my knowledge, and he's putting it into all these programs. And the biggest one for me that he built, the other ones are still taking time, and I'm still better than a lot of the programs, but the one that really took off is the one that predicts the turnover differential in the NFL. And this is our 2nd year doing it. And I'll give you an example of how important the turnover differential is. If the Eagles are playing the Cowboys, and the Eagles turn the ball over 1 time, and the Cowboys don't, whether it's a fumble or an interception, well, the team that turned the ball over 1 time covers the spread or wins the game just 32% of the time. Now, if there's a +2 turnover differential, so if the Eagles turn the ball over twice and the Cowboys didn't, it goes up to an 82% chance that they don't win the game. A +3 is like 99%. So to me, that's huge, because now I add that in with another 20 boxes that I usually check off before I place a wager, and it helps us a lot. So yeah, I wasn't big into technology, but now I'm starting to move in that way because it's a lot faster. And I didn't trust it, because you hear people all the time, I built this model, I built this, and they always end up losing all their money. So until you put something in action and actually start betting it, it's kind of like when we first started counting cards. This was 1990, and we read like 5 books on it. I never read a book in school, but when it came to making money, I'd read the book, So, when we practiced at home, we won millions of dollars, imaginary money. We never lost. But then when the first time I went to the casino, it's a different ball game. The lights, the speed, people talking. And we lost like the first 5, 6 times out. And then on the 7th or 8th time, we actually won money. And then on the 9th time, the pit bosses came down and told us politely to leave because they knew we were counting cards. So, that's just another story. Go ahead.
Poker. World
A
Series.
little bit. It's a lot of work. I played in the 2014 World Series of Poker. I lasted like 4 days. There's a lot of luck involved in that. My good friend Jamie Gold, He won the $12 million in the World Series of Poker. Very good friend of mine. And he wasn't even a poker player. He was an agent out in L.A. that caught fire one year and beat the world's best poker players. So there's a lot of luck involved in poker as well. But yeah, poker's a grind. I mean, I did it for a little bit. It's just, it's a lot. It's hard work. You know? Any other questions, Mr. Georgianis?
Any odds makers in Vegas?
What's that?
You know, odds makers.
Yeah, I know some odds makers in Vegas. Mr. Vaccaro, he just retired. But the odds makers, people think they're really sharp, but they're just putting a price on a game. It's like the guy putting a price on a can of soup at the supermarket. That's all they're doing. You know, it's easy to come out with a point spread. It's easy. The hard part is knowing where that point spread is heading and how do you monetize and capitalize on which direction the market's headed. You know, how do you make money off it? But anyone can put a price on anything. Doesn't mean it's right. I'll give you an example. In the NFL, on NFL sides, bookmakers are off by an average of 10 points on every NFL side. And when they get one close, they magnify it. Oh, I fell right on the number. Vegas knows. No, they don't. On average, they're off by 10 points. You know, they're just putting a price where they think they'll get even amount of action on both sides. You know. Any other questions?
Do you just strictly look at sides and totals and that, or ever look into like a player prop?
Yeah, we've got player props. First week of the season, the Colts were playing the Dolphins. And Danny Dimes, quarterback, came from the Giants. Had some really bad seasons with New York. But what people don't realize is the Giants had the worst offensive line in football when he was playing. So now he went to a Colts team that had a top 5 offensive line that could protect him. His player prop was over 199.5 passing yards. I look at Miami's health score. Their pass defense had the lowest health score of any team in the NFL in week 1. They were all the starters were injured. So what do? Over 199.5 passing yards for Danny Dimes, and I think he had like he had 197 in the first half. So yeah, we bet player props, but that's how we approach the player prop market. Health scores are big in the NFL. Yeah, we bet. I mean, anywhere I have an edge. If I don't have an edge, I'm not going to bet it. You know? Any other questions?
Right here.
So, like, would you bet on something like with the Super Bowl, like the Gatorade color, or
Only-
is that not something?
Yeah, we had a couple of them, but we had information. We had people that are telling us. The one year I called, I knew a Pepsi distributed Gatorade. So I called the one Pepsi distributor in one of the cities where the Super Bowl was being held at. And I'm like, yeah, this is Joe from the stadium. We ran out of Gatorade. Can you send some more Gatorade out? He goes, what flavor was it? I go, it's on your receipts. He goes, okay, it was red. I go, okay. I hang up the phone. And I got the Gatorade color. So, and then they stopped doing that afterwards. I guess they picked up on it. But it's all information. Stuff like that's information based. Whether you have, like the national anthem, we used to have a guy out there, and when they used to do their practice runs, he used to time it. If the person singing did 3 runs under, a minute 33 seconds, well then we were betting the under in the national anthem. And then they stopped letting people, so anywhere you have an edge, there's an expiration date, and you got to keep finding more edges because they don't want you to make money off it. Yeah, so that's all information based. You can't handicap that unless you get a tip, Any other questions? How about you? I know you want to ask me a question.
Should Pete Rose be back in the Hall of Fame?
He should have been there a long time ago. He used to bet with a friend of mine, Joe V. Never bet on his team. Never bet against his team. And people have different opinions. Obviously, he was punished. But you got Shohei Ohtani now with his interpreter was betting all this money. Yeah, there's so many, now it's a big business. Now, that's all subjective. It's all someone's opinion, whether he should be in or not. But who was a better baseball player than Pete Rose? I mean, growing up, these guys don't remember him, but, he was Mr. Baseball. He was Charlie Hustle. He was, but that's up to them. I got Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame. There was a lot of guys that took PEDs that never made it out of the minors. So, he was a great hitter before he took him. He would have been in the Hall of Fame. So, I mean, that's all opinion. I'm sorry.
You're not going to bet soccer, but are you going to bet the World Cup?
Unless I get information, no. Unless I get information, no. I don't trust soccer. What's that? That's fine. That's fine.
That works.
That works. Anyone that can give me info, as long as it's credible and it wins, I'll take it. But yeah, I mean, the best thing to do is not bet on sports, unless, like I said, you can accept the fact that you're not going to win long term, and you're doing it for fun. And if you're lucky and you hit a parlay, that's great. But don't get addicted to it, because it's very addictive. I did a big TV show. It was in 60 different markets in the country. And how I explained sports betting was, it's a Molotov cocktail disguised as a whiskey sour. It seems fun. It seems, I'm having a good time. And then, boom, it just explodes in your face if you're not careful. So you got to be really careful. And like I said, I'm against the legalization of sports betting now, where before I was for it, because I've read the studies coming out. And people can't control themselves. A lot of people can't. It's hard, So don't, unless, like I said, unless you treat it like entertainment, that's fine,
Is there such a thing as too much information?
I mean, there's analysis, there's paralysis by analysis sometimes, yeah. But there's never enough good information. There's a lot of information out there that doesn't help you in any way. This team's 6-0 and they've passed for 1,600 yards in the last 6 games. Yeah, but they played the 6 worst teams in the NFL. Who cares? What good is that? It's a skewed number. And then you got another team they're playing who's 3-3 and played 6 of the best teams, and then you're surprised that the team that's 3-3 beat the team that was 6-0. Well, it's not an accident. That's just a short little.
Anybody else have any questions?
Playing with books. What we got?
So we have paperbacks and we have hard copies. You guys can grab a paperback for $15, correct?
Yeah, it's I discount it for you guys if you guys want it.
And then the hard copies are $20, correct?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So
On Amazon, they're usually $29.99 and $34.99. Number one bestseller, new releases on Amazon, which shocked me. I never thought that was going to happen. Yeah, so.
Autograph it for us.
Of course, of course, yeah. But if you guys want a book, I mean, we're here for that.
one more thing. When you guys decide to do something in life, whatever it is, make sure that sometimes you don't negotiate with yourself. For example, you go to the gym a couple times, then you're like, oh, I deserve a day off. Well, that day becomes 2 days off, 3 days off, and then you're not back at the gym. So we told ourselves we're going to write this book. We decided not to negotiate with ourselves when it came to writing the book. And surprisingly enough, we're here. And it's surprisingly enough, just like you said, it was a bestseller on Amazon, number one. So, we wrote a book about my father's life, my family's life. And one thing to realize is that everyone has a book, everyone has a story. Every day you wake up, you write a page of your story. So just remember that, and you're all authors of your own life. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, what's the story you want written about you? That's just something I want to get across. But if you guys are interested in the book, let us know. Again, 15 for a soft copy and 20 for a hard copy. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks again for coming out. I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
I got a pen for you if you need it.
That's cool. Yeah. Just here. You gonna make it down here, Doc? Need some help?
Is there a marker?
Yeah. Cash. He's got Venmo. He's got all the new stuff. I don't know what. Yeah, he handles everything.
I'm gonna write it up here.
Sorry. Presidente, lá. I wouldn't. Yeah. That's good. That's good. Yeah, fees. All right. Yeah, good. That's awesome. He was the best. Cut him.
Thanks for coming. Thanks.
There he is. Hello.